Undercover boss buys a truck at his own dealership, freezes when he hears the customer behind him. At some places, skin color still matters more than your bank balance. That was something Finn Allen had known since he was a child, but he never expected to be reminded of it, right inside a place that proudly advertised freedom of customer choice. A car dealership in the heart of modern Texas. Subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. That morning, the sun scorched the pavement, making the asphalt shimmer like it was steaming. Finn Allen, a black man in his early 50s, tall, with a slow but steady gait, pushed open the thick glass doors of Summit Auto Works, one of the highest-grossing truck dealerships in Texas. He wore faded jeans, a plain button-down shirt washed a dozen times, worn leather shoes, and a baseball cap bearing the logo of a small contracting company, all of which made him look no different from a typical laborer finishing a night shift. As soon as he stepped in, Finn nodded politely to the 3 staff members behind the reception desk, but while the electronic door chime was still echoing, their eyes had already passed over him like air. They kept joking with each other. One was scrolling through TikTok, the other 2 fixated on their computer screens, despite no other customers waiting. 10 minutes passed. No one asked what he needed. No greeting. Not a single courteous glance. Finn stepped closer, keeping his tone gentle. "Excuse me, I'd like to ask about the Ford F-150, the Lariat or Platinum trim, if available." One of the 3, a brown-haired guy around 25, muttered to his colleague, "Probably an Uber delivery mistake." The second shrugged. "We don't carry anything under 40 grand, my man. Maybe try a used lot instead." Still composed, Finn replied, "I'm interested in the 2024 model, 3.5-liter EcoBoost engine, and I'll be paying in cash." That line made all 3 of them freeze for half a second, as if someone had just cracked a joke. One squinted at him from head to toe, then chuckled, "You got that kind of money, huh?" No apology, no invitation to sit down, just raw skepticism hanging in the air like dust on the polished leather chairs in the showroom. At that moment, a white man in a Ralph Lauren polo shirt walked in, hair slicked back, sunglasses on. One of the staff instantly approached him, beaming, "Good afternoon, sir. Would you prefer iced coffee or an espresso?" Finn stood there, hearing every word, and couldn't help but feel a weight sink in his chest. While the newcomer was immediately escorted to the VIP area, Finn, who had arrived earlier, who had been more polite and had the means to pay in full, as she still stood, as if he were an inconvenience. Racism doesn't always scream on street corners. Sometimes it hides in indifference, in condescending glances, in the kind of treatment people don't have to spell out. But everyone understands. And at Summit Auto Works that day, Finn Allen was deemed an unfit customer, not because he lacked the money, but because his skin wasn't white enough. And what they didn't know was this: the man they just turned away, the man they refused to sell to, actually owned a stake in the very dealership they worked for. But Finn didn't rush to reveal it. He just offered a soft smile, then nodded. "Thank you." Because the real test, for them, was only just beginning. After more than 30 minutes sitting in the waiting area, where the air conditioner hummed softly and the scent of new car leather lingered, Finn Allen was finally invited upstairs, to the 2nd floor, behind a frosted glass door etched with the words, "Sales Management, Authorized Personnel Only." A sales associate said curtly, "Mr. Leo will work with you." Not a single apology for the delay. Leo Carter appeared, a white man in his early 30s, hair slicked back with gel-like lacquer, a navy blue dress shirt pressed to perfection without a crease, a narrow tie, and polished Italian leather shoes that gleamed like mirrors. He extended a handshake with a polite nod, but his eyes betrayed a thin veil of scrutiny. To Leo, Finn didn't look like a serious buyer, more like someone who might cause problems. As soon as Finn sat down, Leo pulled out a thick stack of papers and launched into a rehearsed sales pitch. We currently have a special promotion on our $2,800 interior protection package, which includes full nano coating, leather scratch insurance for 36 months, and an additional HVAC system sanitation option favored by our premium clients. Finn sat quietly, his eyes fixed on the hand, pointing at each added fee. After the interior package came the $200 delivery fee, a $399 administrative charge, and a line in smaller print. Service performance surcharge, $890. Finn asked calmly, "What does that surcharge mean?" Leo responded flatly, "Nothing to worry about. That's a standard fee for non-VIP qualified clients." Each word landed like an icy slash. Non-VIP qualified, not because of finances, but simply because someone decided he didn't look like someone who belonged. Finn nodded and continued to observe without interruption. This wasn't just a transaction, it was a crime scene file. Through the office glass, he could see the customer waiting area below. At the opposite desk, a Latino man, wearing a white shirt and accompanied by a girl about 6 years old, was patiently sitting across from a finance associate. Finn noticed the conversation had been going on for over 20 minutes, and the employee kept repeating the same questions 3 different ways. Is your credit score high enough? Do you get paid through direct deposit or cash? Is there a co-signer on the account? The little girl was starting to get tired, dozing off in her chair. Her father tried to maintain a smile, but the trembling hand he laid on the contract spoke louder than words. Finn quietly took out his phone and snapped a photo. These behaviors weren't listed in any employee handbook, but they existed, embedded as the unspoken codes of the system. Back at his table, Finn looked at Leo, who was still enthusiastically explaining a loyalty program exclusive to clients who've transacted over $100,000, a program that had never been mentioned to any of the minority customers. Finn asked, "Could you show me the official fee schedule for this dealership?" Leo paused for a second, then answered, "We don't disclose it. Each deal is personalized." Finn simply smiled, because now the pieces were beginning to fall into place: the systemic favoritism, the covert discrimination, and a business model cracking open from within. He wasn't here just to buy a truck. He was collecting evidence. Every word, every gesture, every vague surmise, preparing for a battle those men didn't even know they'd started. And the polished mask Leo Carter wore was beginning to show its first cracks. The tense silence in the waiting area of Summit Auto Works was suddenly pierced by an urgent voice from a shadowed corner. Finn looked up, his eyes turning toward the sound, where a middle-aged man stood before the management desk, his calloused hands clutching a stack of papers. His name was Nathan Miller, with dark brown skin, wearing a stained construction uniform speckled with dried paint, sleeves rolled high to reveal wiry muscles worn from years of physical labor. His work boots still bore dried concrete clinging to the soles. He wasn't the kind of customer this dealership welcomed, and that much was obvious. "Please," Nathan's voice trembled as he held out the deposit slip toward Leo Carter. "I just want my $1,000 deposit back. That truck isn't what we agreed on. Yesterday they said $42,000. Now you're telling me $49,700? Leo didn't bother lifting his eyes from the computer screen. His tone was flat, cold, like reading from a company bulletin. "You signed the provisional agreement. Section 3.4 states, price subject to market fluctuation. Summit is not liable if you didn't read the fine print." "But that was a verbal agreement," Nathan objected, his eyes reddening. "Josh told me if I placed a deposit, I'd get the original price." "Josh doesn't work here anymore," Leo interrupted, smirking. "And I can't verify that. If you're unhappy, you can file a complaint, but the deposit is non-refundable." Behind the consultation counter, a female employee lowered her gaze to avoid Nathan's. Meanwhile, Finn, seated less than 10 feet away, quietly leaned forward, his hand resting on his thigh, eyes closed in rising anger. Part of him wanted to stand up and call out the injustice unfolding in broad daylight. But another part, the part forged through years of restraint, held him in place. He knew his moment to speak would come, and when it did, no one would be able to interrupt. Nathan, standing there, wounded, diminished, crushed by a system that pretended to be fair but had mastered the art of bending rules, triggered a jolt of memory in Finn, flashing back 32 years like an electric shock. He had been just 14. He'd followed his father, a Gulf War veteran in uniform, name tag Allen, still dusty from Fort Hood, to a local car dealership. His father had saved for 6 years to buy the family's first SUV. But after 2 hours of negotiation, the salesman returned and simply said, "Sorry, there was a system error. The contract was printed wrong." They quietly shredded the agreement in front of Mr. Allen, without a single apology. "We'll call next week," they said. But no one ever called. Finn never forgot the look in his father's eyes. Not anger, but quiet humiliation. A man who had faced artillery fire, now undone by a worthless signature. It wasn't just rejection. It was a declaration. You don't belong. And now, all these years later, another man, Nathan, was being forced to hear the same bitter refrain, wrapped in a more modern, more refined, more legally sanitized form. Leo stood up, leaned over the desk, and whispered to a colleague, "Give him the policy sheet. Tell him to read it himself. No eye contact, no handshake." Nathan, stunned, stepped back like he'd just taken a blow to the chest. He folded the paper, stuffed it into his shirt pocket, and walked away in silence. No one saw him off. No one looked his way. Except Finn. Finn bowed his head and took a deep breath. His hand quietly opened the phone camera, but he didn't record. He just etched it into memory. Every detail. The way Leo said, "If you didn't read." The way Nathan clung to the paper like the last shred of dignity, and how the entire showroom, with its gleaming glass, bright lights, and polished branding, still allowed injustice to flow smoothly, as if it were just another part of the premium service. The staff break room at Summit Auto Works was tucked away behind the corridor, leading to the employee restrooms, marked by a wooden door with creaky hinges and a faded sign that read, "Staff only." Inside, the air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and vape residue. A white plastic table was stained with coffee rings, and beside it, a snack machine emitted long, whining groans like it was protesting its job. Finn Allen, undercover as Marcus Taylor, a small business owner looking for a pickup truck for his brick hauling crew, sat leaned back in a chair, elbows resting on his knees, his baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Damien, a sales associate just 4 months into the job, barely 23, appeared thin and constantly uneasy, his eyes darting with uncertainty. When Finn brought up being denied a consultation, Damien lowered his head and sighed lightly. "You're black, right? Around here. If you want to buy a truck without getting fleeced, you better be white. Or at least have someone inside to vouch for you. Otherwise, good luck." Finn said nothing. He simply lifted his cup of lukewarm coffee, nodded slightly, like a man who had heard it all before. It was a tactic he'd mastered over the years in conversations with supremacists. Stay silent long enough, and they'll reveal the truth themselves. Damien seemed to have found the release valve to his bottled-up frustration. Josh, man, he was decent. Customers liked him a lot. A few months ago, he refused to sneak in a $1,200 nano coating add-on into the invoice of a black female customer. The next day, they moved him to night shifts. 2 weeks later, he was gone. Damien swallowed hard, glancing toward the hallway, as if someone might overhear. "Did anyone report it?" Finn asked, his voice low. Damien gave a small nod, then looked over at a tattered canvas backpack hanging on the wall. I've recorded nearly every client interaction since I started. Total of 83 files, including audio of Leo coaching us on how to adjust accessory fees depending on the customer, and several instances of pushing interior protection plans specifically on Asian and minority clients. Damien lowered his gaze and pulled a small black USB from his inner shirt pocket. If you're trying to expose them, take this. Finn accepted the tiny device between 2 fingers, tucking it into his inner jacket pocket like he was storing a concealed weapon. He didn't say thank you, just nodded. Because gratitude was a luxury when surviving in a system that forced you to stay silent to keep your job. With those 83 recordings, Finn knew he was no longer just a disrespected customer. He had become a witness, holding a piece of living proof of systemic discrimination. A commercial enterprise in the heart of Texas operating on racial profiling, where interior protection fees weren't just business gimmicks, but tools for punishing those who didn't belong to the favored demographic. As Damien spoke, Finn also took in a few surrounding details. A chart dividing customers by profile types, each with a color code. A team meeting agenda titled Redirecting Non-Target Demographics. A framed top sales team photo on the wall. Every face in it was white. "Where's Josh now?" Finn asked again, this time with a more resolute tone. "Heard he moved to New Mexico, working at a smaller local dealership, not dealing with this crap anymore." Damien let out a bitter laugh. Finn left the break room with quiet steps, but a heavy gaze. Each footfall felt like it was cracking deeper into the false wall Summit Auto Works had built. And once the disguise had fallen, nothing could hide the truth anymore. The smiles, the greetings, and the free coffee were reserved for a select few. And black men like Finn, this system had only one purpose: to make them feel like foreigners in their own country. That morning, the Texas sunlight filtered through the large windows of the Summit Auto Works management office, casting a glow on the crisp white shirt of Leo Carter, now carefully layered with a charcoal blazer. In his hands were 2 steaming porcelain cups of coffee, the kind reserved for VIP clients only. His face was pulled tight in a forced smile, every crease around his mouth betraying the awkward performance. "Mr. Marcus Taylor, correct?" Leo said, his voice dropping into a sycophantic tone. "Thank you for coming back. Today, I'll be assisting you personally. Please enjoy this special Ethiopian roast. We reserve it for our elite guests." Finn Allen, still in character as Marcus, accepted the coffee cup and gently placed it on the gleaming wooden table in the center of the room. His eyes scanned the surroundings, committing every detail to memory. From the freshly printed offer sheet, listing contingency service fee, $2,100, and premium interior package, $1,750, to the framed photo of Leo posing beside a 2021 Porsche hanging on the wall. "The issue is," Finn began, "I saw this exact F-150 listed at another dealership for nearly $6,000 less. But here, every single charge is inflated beyond reason. Why is that?" Leo blinked. He hadn't expected a pressed man like this to know the market so well. But then he smiled and sipped his coffee. "We call that a leverage package. VIP clients always receive a better experience. For you, if you're flexible, I might be able to ease a few charges. But these fees are standard for most customers. We need profit, you understand." Finn remained silent. Leo leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Honestly, white or black, they all buy cars. But the black ones tend to be trouble, loud, and in the end, they still take it. They don't sue because no law protects anyone from being treated poorly if the paperwork is clean." He smirked. "And my higher-ups don't care. I'm the one running this place. I choose the customers I want." The room fell heavy, a moment of stifling silence. Finn set the coffee cup down, slowly removed his sunglasses. His hand moved deliberately to his cap, pulling it off to reveal his sharp, composed face. Nothing left to hide. As Leo readied to chuckle, thinking Marcus was about to snap, Finn reached for his wallet and flipped it open to reveal a silver-embossed ID card that read, "Finn Allen, Chairman, Allen Automotive Group." The color drained from Leo's face. His voice caught in his throat. His eyes widened as if waking from a bad dream. You're... Finn rose to his feet, standing a full head taller than Leo, his gaze as sharp as a blade slicing through the salesman's phony facade. "I'm the founder of this dealership. I signed the land lease. I found the employee training program you've been abusing, and I just heard you say that black customers can't do anything. I'm going to show you exactly what they can do." Leo swallowed hard. His voice stammered. "This is a misunderstanding. I was just... Finn didn't answer. He pulled from his inner jacket pocket a manila envelope. Inside were copies of Damien's audio recordings, along with photos of the customer profiling chart, marked by racial color codes. "I've heard enough, and you just confirmed the rest," Finn said, then turned to leave. No one in that office yet knew that Finn had already scheduled a press conference for the following morning, with representatives from the NOLOICP, the local news station, and 2 federal attorneys. But Leo would find out. Very soon. Leo Carter's face turned pale, as if all the blood had been drained from it. His lips quivered. His hands trembled as Finn Allen slowly pulled a mini speaker from the inside pocket of his jacket. Without saying another word, Finn pressed play, and Leo's voice rang out, loud and clear. "Black customers are a burden to technical support. They're always complicated, always want discounts, and always make you deal with little nonsense. White folks buy fast. Don't complain. They're the ones worth keeping." The room froze. The 3 staff members in the office glanced swiftly between Finn and Leo, then toward the glass door, where the heavy thuds of Finn's footsteps echoed as he walked into the showroom. It was 10:42 a.m. The floor was busy, with around 17 customers and 9 employees present. A black woman was studying a price board. A Middle Eastern couple stood beside a Ford Expedition SUV, and 2 young Asian men were inquiring about the financing program. No one knew what was about to unfold, until Finn stepped into the center of the lobby and raised his hand. "May I ask all staff and customers to pause for a few minutes?" he said, his voice deep and calm, yet commanding. "I have something important to share." One staff member started to step in, but Finn's gaze stopped him in his tracks. "My name is Finn Allen. I'm the founder of the Allen Automotive Group, the corporation behind the Summit Auto Works network." His voice echoed through the growing silence in the room. "For the past 3 days, I walked in here disguised as an ordinary customer, wearing old clothes, introducing myself to no one. And what I experienced, ladies and gentlemen, was not customer service. It was racism, systemic discrimination, and dehumanization." Finn paused briefly, sweeping his eyes across the room and locking onto every person of color standing there. "I wasn't treated poorly because I couldn't afford the car. I was treated poorly because I'm black. And today, I refuse to let that continue another minute longer." He raised a folder. "These are 83 audio recordings from internal staff, documenting racially biased consultations, forced markups, and skin color-based pricing strategies. This is a list of 112 customers whose rightful benefits were denied, most of them black, Latino, or Asian. And this," he held up the USB drive, "is evidence of Leo Carter referring to those customers as non-profitable burdens." Murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. A black woman called out, "I knew it." I came here 3 times and kept getting pushed off. An elderly Asian man nodded silently. Finn turned toward the staff. All transactions from the past 6 months will be independently audited. Every employee who filed complaints and was ignored will be reinstated, issued formal apologies, and compensated if necessary. Every customer who was mistreated will be contacted next week to correct pricing and services. 2 security officers approached, followed by the regional director, summoned personally by Finn earlier that morning. Without needing further instruction, they moved toward Leo Carter, who had been hiding behind the frosted glass door behind the reception desk. "Leo Carter," Finn announced, "you are hereby suspended immediately. All system access is revoked. Your computer, phone, and personal records will be confiscated for internal and federal investigation." Leo emerged, his face flushed like wine, sweat pouring down like rain. He didn't dare object. In that moment, he was no longer a senior manager. He was the face of a discriminatory system being ruthlessly dismantled. Finn watched Leo's figure as he was led to the front door. He didn't smile. He didn't say another word, because the silence in that moment was the loudest voice of justice. And the storm he ignited today was the beginning of an undercurrent strong enough to shake an entire industry. That afternoon, the Texas sun still blazed across the concrete of the parking lot, but inside the manager's office at Summit Auto Works, a different kind of warmth filled the air, one of respect. Finn Allen stood at the entrance, no longer the unassuming man in worn jeans, but a steady leader with clear, calm eyes. He greeted Nathan Miller, the middle-aged black man who had been dismissed by Leo Carter earlier that morning, with a firm, sincere handshake. "Mr. Nathan," Finn began, "I was there when what happened this morning unfolded, and I believe I have a responsibility." Nathan nodded, slightly stunned. His weathered, sun-darkened hands trembled slightly as he placed his old cap on the table. "I didn't think this would come around so quickly." Finn invited him to sit. He opened a thick folder and turned to the contract page. "This is the truck you chose, the Ford F-150 Lariat, base model, listed at the exact MSRP of $44,980. No hidden fees, no interior protection package, no forced financing." He paused, then slid the contract toward Nathan. "If you still want this truck, I'd like to hand it over to you personally." Nathan's eyes welled up. He looked at the contract, then slowly raised his gaze. "My daughter, Emily, she's only 9. Yesterday she asked me, 'Daddy, why do people like you get treated worse than others?' I didn't know how to answer her." Finn nodded gently, then stood and walked to the safe. He retrieved an envelope marked Summit Auto Works Foundation, Education Fund. He placed it in front of Nathan. "This is a full 4-year scholarship for Emily to any university she chooses in the future. It covers tuition, books, and housing. A total of $268,000. The fund comes from company profits, and today, I believe it's time to use it for a reason that truly matters." Nathan sat in stunned silence. Words failed him. A humble construction worker, once dismissed, now stood as a symbol of redemption. I don't know if I can accept this." Finn placed a hand on his shoulder. "No one has the right to make your daughter believe her father is lesser. No one. And if I don't change that starting right here, then everything I said this morning means nothing." The air in the room felt thick, almost breathless. 2 men, one once rejected, the other who had disguised himself to expose a system, now sat across from each other, connected by one purpose: dignity. After Nathan left, Finn returned to his computer screen, where a list of 43 black customers appeared, all denied financing or overcharged in just the last 2 months. He marked each name. A new campaign was underway, not just to fix mistakes, but to rebuild justice from the root. 2 weeks after the shockwave called "Who is Finn Allen?", Summit Auto Works was no longer the top-selling dealership in the Houston area. It had become the epicenter of a sweeping reform. Finn began with decisive action. All 2,471 vehicle sales contracts from the past 12 months were reviewed line by line. For the first time in the company's history, an internal audit team was created, led by Damien, the young former employee who had once quietly warned Finn, now appointed head of transparency and contract auditing. The numbers soon emerged, and numbers don't lie. 126 contracts belonging to black customers had inflated prices, including mandatory add-on packages worth $1,400 and mysterious internal processing fees that had never once appeared on a white customer's invoice. The total amount refunded after 2 weeks reached $294,860. Each affected customer was contacted directly via handwritten letter, accompanied by a reimbursement check and an apology signed personally by Finn. But Finn didn't stop there. He invited 6 representatives from local communities, including pastors, lawyers, social activists, and even former customers, to form the Community Advisory Board. They were given not only oversight over internal operations, but also the power to propose policy changes. Trina, the Asian American employee who had once been reassigned to the warehouse for not upselling enough, was now appointed head of recruitment and training. She immediately established a new rule. No employee will be rewarded based on how much they pressure customers. Bonuses will come solely from satisfaction and honesty. On Summit Auto Works' website, a new page was launched: Commitment to Diversity, Integrity, and Fair Service. Within 10 days, it became the second most visited page after vehicle orders, with over 61,000 visits and nearly 3,200 positive comments. Finn also ordered the implementation of an anonymous feedback system with a Report Injustice button placed directly on the customer service app. In just 3 days, 48 reports came in, from employees forced to reject Latinx clients to customers threatened with police intervention simply for walking in wearing work clothes. A full company-wide meeting was held on day 15. Finn stood at the podium in the main hall, his expression calm but razor-sharp. We don't just sell cars, we sell trust. And if that trust is betrayed because of skin color, gender, or income, then we don't deserve to sell anything at all. From the front row, Damien and Trina stood up first, followed by applause from the entire room. No one was forced. No one was prompted. It was a recognition. Justice begins from within, and it must be upheld day by day, transaction by transaction. 3 weeks after Finn Allen's quiet uprising, the story had long escaped the confines of Summit Auto Works. It erupted across the nation like a wildfire fueled by years of buried resentment. It began with an article on Forbes. Finn Allen, the black CEO discriminated against in his own company, and how he took down the entire system. Within 36 hours, the piece had been shared over 118,000 times on LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter X, and major forums. CNN quickly followed up with a 6-minute special segment titled, "The Founder Treated Like a Nobody and How He Made an Entire Industry Look in the Mirror." The Washington Post went even further. They investigated a network of 52 auto dealerships in the Houston area and discovered that 68% of discrimination complaints stemmed from chains similar to Summit. This not only validated Finn's story, but turned it into a symbol of a widespread disease in the car retail industry. Public outrage exploded. A group of 19 former customers, including Black, Latinx, and Asian individuals, filed a class action lawsuit against Leo Carter and several associated managers, accusing them of systemic racial discrimination causing financial and emotional harm. They had solid evidence, inflated invoices, recorded conversations, and security footage showing preferential treatment toward white customers. Soon after, Finn appeared at a nationally televised press conference in Austin, Texas, organized by the Association for Justice and Market Equity. In front of over 200 journalists and dozens of live cameras, he stepped onto the stage with the same calm composure he had shown in the showroom just a week prior. "I didn't reform this place because I was insulted," Finn said. "I reformed it because there are thousands like me, fathers in work boots, mothers driving second-hand cars, recent graduates, disrespected daily just because they don't have the right look. I was once a boy watching my father denied a loan because he was black. And I swore I won't let my son witness that again." That quote was clipped and posted on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. And within 48 hours, the hashtag number Justice Under the Hood had become the #2 trending topic nationwide, with over 4.3 million mentions. Even more astonishing, over 37 auto dealerships across the U.S. began publicly announcing transparent pricing policies, updating full fee breakdowns on their websites, and halting the use of vague internal charges. In Dallas, one dealership posted a notice: "We don't wait for scandals to act. We act because it's right." In Finn's neighborhood, hundreds of homes displayed signs on their front lawns. Summit led the way. Now it's our turn to follow. And perhaps most striking of all was a handwritten letter sent to the Summit Auto Works headquarters by an 11-year-old boy named Jamal. "Mr. Finn, I don't know what an F-150 is, but I know you did something big. My dad smiled watching you on TV. I've never seen that before. Thank you." Finn kept that letter in his desk drawer, right beside his corporate ID, not to remind him he was CEO, but to remind him why he started. 1 year after Finn Allen's nationwide unmasking, Summit Auto Works was no longer just a regular truck dealership. It had become a new symbol of corporate rebirth through justice. In the annual rankings of the American Business Ethics Council, Summit earned the #3 spot nationwide on the list of most ethical company cultures in America, trailing only 2 long-established multinational corporations. This was the result of clear, consistent, and unwavering action. A total of 3,219 customer complaints were reprocessed. Nearly $600,000 in unjustified fees was refunded. An independent audit group from the NAACP and the Business Justice League was invited to join Summit's Standing Advisory Board. A new internal equity policy was enacted, requiring every employee to complete a 6-week training program on racial justice, inclusive communication, and ethical sales practices. But the most meaningful change wasn't found in spreadsheets or scoreboards. It was in people. Finn declined an invitation to run for city council, as well as an honorary nomination from a Democratic Party committee in Houston. He had no interest in politics. Instead, he chose to launch a program called Truck the Future, a free vocational training center offering automotive repair, technical skills, and business courses for Black and underserved youth between the ages of 16 and 24. The first class had 31 students, most of whom came from families once mistreated by the very dealership chain he reformed. At the first reform anniversary, the main Summit showroom didn't host a cocktail gala. Instead, there was a modest outdoor gathering with live jazz, Texas barbecue sandwiches, and a long reserved row of seats for customers who had once been turned away. Finn stepped on stage as the sun began to dip low. He wore a plain white shirt, no tie, no CEO badge. In front of him were over 400 people, former staff, students, customers, and many who had only known him through social media. "I used to think that victory meant making the guilty pay," he said slowly, his voice rough but steady. "But I was wrong. Victory isn't when we get revenge. It's when we create an environment where the next child doesn't have to wear a mask, doesn't have to fake being poor or silent, just to be treated like a human being. The crowd erupted in applause, but few spoke. Most simply turned to look at the entrance of the showroom, where a newly unveiled bronze statue now stood. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't stylized. It depicted Finn, in his old baseball cap and faded jacket, leaning slightly, as if listening to someone's story. There was no CEO engraved, no company name, no title, just one small line etched into the base of the statue. He didn't buy a truck. He bought back justice. It wasn't a tribute to one man. It was a reminder that the real battle was never in the showroom. It was in how we look at one another, beyond skin color, beyond bias, beyond the masks we think keep us safe. And for Finn Allen, that legacy is something never to be forgotten. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Watch the next video to see how the fight continues.